Lots of mushy moderates. And even a couple on the left, which is good. We seem to get along all right, so that's good.
Okay, guys, Civil War, where are we going?
We're not doing that.
We should like stand on the side of the room where we're at, right?
Stand on the right side.
No, we're not. We're not segregating. We're a family. Because we're a family, we don't talk politics together. Okay?
Also not true. Yeah.
All right. Now.
Yeah, until the 13th.
Oh, I don't like this.
I just got me into the passion project.
Okay, Alex. There it is. Okay. What? No, not yet. The one I handed out in history, not yet. Okay, so listen. For government, honors government, you guys are looking at April 13th. That's a Wednesday, right before Easter. Gives me a 4-day weekend to work on grading book reviews. Okay, now we talk about book reviews for this class. You have to read something from the right or the left. Okay, and if you didn't watch that lecture, it's called Political Spectrum. Okay, it's on YouTube. It's on your Canvas. It explains everything. Okay, what your yeses and nos mean. I talked about libertarianism and what that is, breaking issues down into different categories and so forth. Okay, so I've put together a list of authors. This is not exclusive. You don't have to stay within this. But I put together a few, and I just wanted to talk about some of these people and tip you off on what you might expect with some of these authors. Okay, from the right, conservative authors, P.J. O'Rourke. I'm sorry? Yeah. Actually, it was just one long list, but then I fixed it. Okay. All right. I'll go back and fix this. Okay. Now, if you're looking at it from my perspective, the right, the left. Okay. How's that? Okay. Now. P.J. O'Rourke is a satirist. You guys know what satire is, yes? Yes. Okay, so he is funny, witty, smart, and sometimes crude. You guys ever watch Bill Maher? Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher. He's at HBO now. He's on the left. He's a satirist. He's funny. He's smart. He's witty. And so forth. Okay, so that's kind of what you can expect from an O'Rourke. How many of you ever heard of Dinesh D'souza? Okay, he's an immigrant from India. Okay, very conservative. Has written several books. He's also a documentary filmmaker as well. He's done some political documentaries that are pretty good. Drop down here to Jim DeMint, former leader of the United States Senate. Left the Senate, went and ran the Heritage Foundation. Christian, conservative, constitutionalist. David Limbaugh, the brother of Rush Limbaugh, writes a lot about the Supreme Court, issues dealing with that. Mark Levin probably has sold more books than any of these people on either side. He has about 10 best-selling, New York Times best-selling books. His one that is out right now is called American Marxism. Okay, he's got a radio show and he's got a Fox News show. Laura Ingram's also a talk show host. She's written a couple books. Sarah Palin, she ran as vice president under John McCain. She's currently suing the New York Times for defamation. So that trial was about to start today, but she has COVID, so they're delaying that. Some of you may have heard of Glenn Beck. He used to be on Fox News as well, has his own internet TV show, and magazine and so forth. Some of his books will work. Any of you guys ever heard of Ann Coulter? Okay, Ann Coulter has no filter. Okay, she's a right winger. You may be reading her book and agree with her, but you'll be shocked at the way she says it. Okay, you can find her books in our library. She has many bestsellers as well. Bernie Goldberg used to work for CBS News, and then he wrote an editorial in the newspaper criticizing the fact that everybody he worked with was a Democrat, okay, at CBS News. And then he lost a lot of friends, and then he lost his job, okay, and he wrote a book called Bias. Mr. Finkeldye used to teach his class. Everybody read Bernie Goldberg's book, Bias, okay? You can still read that. Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, has written a couple books, Christian, conservative, constitutionalist. David Horowitz is pretty entertaining to read. He was raised as a communist. His parents were both card-carrying members of the Communist Party. He went to Berkeley, just the whole thing, right? And then the light bulb went off, and now he became an anti-communist. He's actually passed away, but he does have some relevant books to our political system, okay? So there's tons of these authors. You guys know the bookstore up here on Tyler and 21st. It's Bookaholic. Yeah. They have a political science area where you can find a lot of, some of these you can find in our library too as well. So liberal authors, point out Thomas Frank. Now, these books sell a lot more than these books. Okay, you won't find as many New York Times best-selling authors from the liberal side. Same thing when you turn on talk radio. You don't hear liberal talk radio, okay? All you have to do is turn on NBC, CBS, ABC. You get your liberal point of view, okay? So people go to talk radio for conservative talk radio because they can't get it, you know, maybe go to Fox News, but other than that, I mean, there are a couple other TV like news channels now, like Newsmax and OAN, which just got dropped by DirecTV, so there's one less. Thomas Frank, I've had a lot of students read one of his books. He's got a few, but one was called What's the Matter with Kansas? Had a lot of students read that. It's very condescending towards Kansans that vote Republican, telling us that we're stupid and we're voting against our own self-interest. Okay, so that's a bestseller. Thomas Frank. Michael Moore is also a filmmaker. He's done a lot of documentaries. He's got some books out. Paul Krugman, if you're into economics, he writes for economics for the New York Times. Krugman does. Had a couple students read his book last semester. Robert Reich worked in the Clinton administration, Secretary of Labor. Paul Begala, he's got a couple books out. He was campaign manager for Bill Clinton, worked with Hillary as well. Keith Olbermann used to be a sports center anchor guy, got into politics, got a show on MSNBC, then he got kicked off, so he's got his own internet TV show, Olbermann. He's a radical. Al Franken, any guys heard of this guy? Yeah, Al Franken was on the cast of Saturday Night Live for many years. Funny guy. Decided to run for the Senate. It wasn't a joke. He was elected. He was elected twice to the Senate from Minnesota. Okay, and then he got caught up in the Me Too movement. You guys know the Me Too movement, like sexual harassment and that sort of thing. He did some things he shouldn't have done. He resigned from the Senate. Okay, you gotta give him some props on that for you know saying okay, what I did was wrong. I'll resign. A lot of people don't do that, so respect that. I do at least. So he's got a book out. I mean, it's been many years, but it was called Rush Limbaugh is a Big Fat Idiot. Okay, you can imagine he's a comedian. You know, he's satire and so forth. James Carville also worked with the Clintons. He's a coon ass from Louisiana. He's funny. He's smart and has good style. So it's fairly enjoyable to read. It's funny. Carville, his wife is Mary Matlin, and she worked for the Bush administration. He worked for the Clinton administration, and somehow they're still married. Okay, which is really interesting. Nice couple, James Carville and Mary Matlin. All right, so Hey, but these are probably a lot of these people that, I don't know, your dad's probably met some of these people, huh? Mhm. So he's probably got some of these books at home. So talk to Ava. She's probably got a bunch at home. But yeah, I don't know if he's written a book. If he does, it would be okay to read. Now he's he's a little bit of a libertarian, but definitely tilts to the left side of things. Yeah. Sorry.
Are these names?
I will put this file on Canvas, but all you have to do, guys, is Google conservative or liberal authors, and these same names will come up. What I did, plus just general knowledge. Okay, but really, the Coulter and Coulter books and Mark Levin books are really easy to find because they've written so many. So Books A Million will have them. Our library, some of those. If anybody wants to talk to Lily, read Mark Levin's American Marxism last semester, so if you want to get with her, she's got a copy. So now you're writing a book review here. One of the things you're focusing is on the bias of the author, which will be really easy because they are all very biased. Okay, we don't want somebody in the middle here. Sorry, moderates. Okay, if you feel very comfortable in your political skin, okay, you might try reading something opposite of what you believe. Certainly you will have more to write about if you disagree with it than if you agree with it. Yes? Okay. But you might want to throw the book up against the wall or break something because you're just so pissed at reading the book. Okay. Page 5 in your book has some book review tips. For any of you that really struggle on this, it shouldn't be a struggle. It's 3 to 5 pages. It's your opinion. So that shouldn't be very difficult. But certainly that is helpful if you get stuck on what to write about. Okay. So you guys got quite a bit of time. I do want to approve those books. So if you got a title, you can send it to me on Canvas, or you can bring it to class. Say, Mr. Rebright, how about this book? And I'll give you yay or nay on that. Okay. Good. Okay. What else? He does have a book. He does? Okay. You know what it's called? Rules. Bill Maher. Yeah. Yeah. He's an interesting cat. And he's pissing off a lot of people this week. A lot of people on the left this week he's pissing off. Oh, he said he's done with COVID. He's done with the masks. He's done with all the boosters. He's just like, I'm done with it. And then I just saw a clip from The View of Whoopi Goldberg's like giving him a hard time. It's like, it's just the same old fight. It's just with the guy on the left, you know. So, yeah. All right. So now, those of you that were gone, I posted videos for the lectures that I was doing. So we're in the midst of taking notes. Okay. And so you're definitely going to want to get those notes either by watching the video or getting them from a classmate, which is fine as well. What we've been talking about is different forms of government, okay? And we talked about different forms of government based on different criteria. So the last thing we were talking about was the number of people that can participate in government as a different form of government. So we started with dictatorships, where one person got to participate or a small group. And then we talked about democracy, where we talked about direct democracy, and then representative democracy, which is called a what? A republic. And then we looked at two systems. We were just looking at two systems, okay? The presidential system and a parliamentary system. And that's what we're going to take notes on today. But while I've got this open and up, I've got a couple videos I'm going to show you a little bit of the difference between the two systems, okay? Now, every January, the President of the United States gives what's called the State of the Union Address, okay, in front of both houses of Congress. This is actually mandated by Congress, or by the Constitution, that the President address the State of the Union. So what is meant by that is like the state of Bishop Carroll Catholic High School today is, we're functioning. Right? We're functioning, all right? And hopefully things are going to get better. Students will quit making excuses about, you know, projects, tests, homework, I didn't know, that kind of crap, hopefully that's going to improve. These are complaints I hear from other teachers, my students. Okay. Right. Okay. Now, so our system, the president gives the State of the Union address. I hope I don't trigger anybody here, but this is Trump from 2019. Okay. Can I get some light back there? No, we're not watching the whole thing.
This is what we're doing all week.
It's real. We just introduced the First Lady. Now, during these State of the Union addresses, guys, Reagan was the first president to do this, but he started inviting guests, like Americans that, like, maybe a soldier that was wounded or something like that, or somebody that did something really good in their community and highlighted them during the State of the Union. Reagan was really good about that. And since then, every other president started doing that, inviting other guests. So these people sitting around the First Lady here are those invited guests. Like this little girl, something, she did something.
And my fellow Americans, we meet tonight at a moment of unlimited potential.
Okay, so obviously, guys, you got the vice president, who's the president of the Senate, and you have the Speaker of the House. Now, how many members are there in the United States House of Representatives? Let's try that again. How many people are in the United States House of Representatives? 400. Okay, now, they're doing this in the House chamber. That's why Nancy Pelosi is there, okay? And all of the House Democrats, House Republicans are there, but then all the 100 senators come over too. So it's a packed House. You're also going to see the Joint Chiefs of Staff, okay, some of the military brass. You're going to see some Supreme Court justices there, cabinet members, and so forth. So it's a packed House. And then the gallery, you have the guests, and so
As
forth.
we begin a new Congress, I stand here ready to work with you to achieve historic breakthroughs for all Americans. Millions of our fellow citizens are watching us now gathered in this great chamber, hoping that we will govern not as two parties, but as one nation.
Okay, so you got your Republicans sitting, you walk in on the right, okay? You got your Democrats sitting as you walk in on the left. All right, now, here's 4 Supreme Court justices here, okay? You got members of the cabinet, you got Pompeo here, Mnuchin, yeah, okay. Over here, you got some Joint Chiefs, okay? Now, the women of the House wore white, okay, to represent like a women's unity thing against Trump, okay? So that was the whole thing. Now, it's all polite, it's all scripted. What the president is wearing, the tie, blue or red, you know, I mean, it's all scripted. And the speech all appear on these teleprompters up here. Somebody writes the speech for the president. The president has a say in what goes into the speech, of course, but somebody else writes it. It's all scripted, okay? Now, other than Nancy Pelosi tearing up the speech in 2020, okay, most of the time this is very cordial. And there was one time where a representative from the Republicans, when Obama was speaking, that yelled, "You lie," but he said something in his speech, okay? Other than that, in 200 plus years of this, every president has done this in person with the exception of one president submitted State of the Union address in writing. Thomas Jefferson, who was very good at writing but did not like speaking in public, okay? And back then you really didn't have to, okay? But now it's more like Hollywood. Yes? Yes.
What happened with Nancy Pelosi?
Mhm.
We watched it.
So the president, when the president comes in, he hands the vice president, the speaker, a copy of the speech. Okay, and she ripped it up. Huh?
It was like.
It was like whenever.
At the end of the speech, yeah. Yeah, normally it's just kind of cordial, you know what I mean? And if you don't like what he says, you don't boo, you just sit there. Okay, you sit there and one half of the chamber stands up and the other just sits there. Okay, that's how it works, okay? Now, as opposed to the British House of Commons.
I like insult each other.
Here we go.
They're so.
Did you see that where they, one guy like picked up the vase and like just popped
I
out?
wish we were part of English Parliament, just to make it more.
Okay,
I would make it.
now this is the current Prime Minister of Britain. And the opposition leader, okay? So here's Boris Johnson, okay? He is a conservative. Now, that's conservative in Britain, okay? He would not be a conservative in the United States, okay? He'd be like Laura Kelly, a moderate Democrat from Kansas, or a Mitt Romney, somebody like that, okay? Now, so you got this is the conservatives, and over on this side, you have the liberals, okay? This is the opposition party leader. Okay, so if you're talking about today, in our system, that would be McCarthy of California or Mitch McConnell in the Senate. Okay, Kevin McCarthy is the House Minority Leader, so he would have a say. But in our system, he doesn't get to question the president like this opposition leader does, get the opportunity to question the prime minister. And this is exactly what it's doing here. It's a lot different.
If the Prime Minister does to the country what he's done to his party in the past 24 hours, I think a lot of people have a great deal to fear from his incompetence, his vacillation, and his refusal to publish known facts that are known to him about the effects of a no-deal Brexit.
Prime Minister, I don't see how, with a straight face, the right honourable gentleman can accuse anybody of being unwilling to stand up to scrutiny when he will not agree. He will not agree to submit his surrender bill to the verdict of the people in an election. He's granted. And Mr. Speaker, he makes a contrast. He makes a contrast between this government and his own proposals. The contrast could not be clearer. He thinks we think that the friends of this country are to be found in Paris and in Berlin and in the White House, and he thinks that they're in the Kremlin and in Tehran and in Caracas. And I think he's Caracas, Mr.
Yeah, it's way more entertaining. Okay, not to mention there is a pub just off the exit door of the House of Parliament. Okay. Yeah.
There's a stage right over there.
Okay.
That's why we call it.
It's so funny watching like the lady in the background, like
Yeah.
when the dude was talking.
Facial
like, when that
expression.
was-
Yeah. Yeah. So, guys.
They have their young football. They just have their young-
So let me give you some notes on this, okay? So when you look at a presidential system like we have, now, both of these are republics. The fact is, most republics use a parliamentary system, okay? So with the presidential system, there are a couple key things you have to focus on. Now, some of you guys already have this down, okay? But the executive and the legislative branches are separate and independent, okay? And I gave the example last week when President Obama ran for president in 2008, he was a member of the Senate. When he was elected president, he had to give up that seat, okay? Because you can't be in both branches at the same time. Does that make sense?
left it on.
Oh, thanks. Good thing I didn't step on it. Okay. So they're separate and independent of each other. And the executive is elected not by the legislature. Again, showing that separation. The executive is elected by the people or some other apparatus, but it's not the legislature, okay? Obviously, guys, we use the electoral college that the people get to choose, the electors, yes.
But the legislature, like, they get to vote though, right?
The legislatures, oh, personally, yes, they get to vote in their home states, yes. Yes, absolutely. Unless they're a convicted felon, and there's no rule about being elected as a convicted felon.
Yeah, you can't vote, but you can be elected.
Yes, the other people can vote for you.
Isn't it? That's what we discussed.
Well, we talked about this the other day, like, women couldn't vote, but women could be elected. They just couldn't vote for themselves.
Talked about the guy who.
Yes, we talked about Blagojevich. Yeah, okay. Okay, here's the other major part of this, is that the president is both chief executive and head of state. So this is ceremonial. There, is it with an E? Okay, head of state tends to be a ceremonial position, where chief executive, the Constitution gives you powers. In our case, the executive is to carry out the law or execute the law. Okay, that's the day-to-day affairs, right? The chief executive. So if the president attends the funeral of, say, a pope or another head of state, he does so, or she would do so, as the ceremonial head of the United States representing our nation. Okay, or here's another example. If aliens came down and came to the United States and they said, "Take me to your leader," you would take them to the president. Okay. That was my Marvin the Martian impersonation. You guys know Marvin the Martian? The little black hair. Okay. All right, so we got presidential. Now let's look at parliamentary systems. Okay, these are kind of complicated and confusing, especially since there are a lot of different countries that use it, and different countries use different ways, different terms. Okay, so parliamentary systems. Okay, the executive and the legislature are linked together. So, another way of putting this is, in order to become PM, must be an MP. Not military police, but what? A member of parliament. So, Boris Johnson is a member of parliament. Who elected Boris Johnson to be the prime minister? Parliament. So the legislature elects one of their own to be prime minister. That is the British model. Okay. Now, the prime minister is the chief executive the head of state is who in the British monarchy? The Queen. Again, ceremonial. That make sense? Now, let me throw a wrench in this. Let's talk about Germany. They use a parliamentary system. Oh, yeah.
Theoretically, could the chief executive also be?
If the Queen ran for Parliament and was elected to Parliament and chosen as the Prime Minister by Parliament, yes. Yeah, it took centuries to move the Queen and the House of Lords out of power, yes, and for the commoners, the common people to take power. Okay, we're part of that process too, the United States. Okay, now in Germany they have a chancellor and a president. That's confusing. A president in a parliamentary system? Now, which one of these is the chief executive? That's right. Is Angela Merkel, she's still there? I know she's leaving. She's out? Who's the new chancellor? Do you know?
I don't know. So
We got-
no one cares about it.
What's that?
No one cares about Germany now that Angela's gone. Now
Okay. The president is the head of state, which doesn't hold very much power in Germany. Influence, yes, like the Queen has influence. She doesn't really have power. She can't do anything. She can influence members. She can, and the British especially, guys, because they still have what's called the British Commonwealth of Nations, okay? Now, they're independent nations today, like Canada, Kenya, India, and others. Hell, they used to control a quarter of the planet, right? Including us, okay? Now, we don't recognize that. We're not part of that English Commonwealth, okay, of nations, all right? But if any of you guys have watched The Crown on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
It's good. Like, it shows her role really well, okay? And especially when it comes to the former Commonwealth nations and issues that they're having, right? And Britain can step in and help, Guys, this thing with Ukraine, all right? Now, I think it's France, Germany, and Britain are meeting with the Russians, but Biden's not invited. Like, that's going on right now. Now, Anthony Blinken, our Secretary of State, has been meeting with the Russian foreign minister, okay, over the last, few days. He met with the Russian foreign minister. So, I mean, we're having talks with Russia, but the Europeans are going to have talks with Russia as well. So, right now, NATO's not really playing a role in this. All right, because Ukraine is not part of NATO, and that's really what Russia wants out of this, is that Ukraine will never become part of NATO. That's what they want. Yeah.
Do you think Europe will try to appease Russia without us having to say?
Yeah. Don't you?
It's gonna be like the Munich Pact where they talk about
Ooh, yeah. Let's see if something
Yeah,
like that
do you
happens.
think they'll do that? Do you think they'll sell
What is
Ukraine
that?
I don't
out?
think they're gonna split up.
Now, Britain's been sending lethal weapons. So is the United States. Okay.
to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Are we trying to?
Isn't that like violating something?
No,
Not really.
They're an ally.
I'm pretty sure Finland and,
Is it right?
no, Finland and Norway, like, started fortifying that island in the Baltic Sea, like, block
They're starting to,
Yeah. like-
they're afraid.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah, and also like, didn't they always have it, and they just kind of tolerate each other, now they're like, buddy, and Russia's right there.
Yeah. No, and look, if you're Estonian, Latvia, Lithuania, I mean, there's a history here.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, the Russians have meddled in their affairs for centuries, and it's a real thing. And so, I mean, I think President Biden, just like I said before, he's got to be clear. Just be clear. Now, it's really interesting to watch American politics here because you do have some people on the left that are advocating for, like the United States sending troops. And guys, the Russians have 100,000 troops at the border. We said, now, okay, you put in 200 American special forces, they can do a lot with air power, with the special forces on the ground. ISIS knows that, okay? But you're dealing with a whole different bear here. Yeah. I mean, Napoleon did this, right? Hitler tried this.
How cold was this Russia?
Huh?
How cold was it?
It was so freaking cool. And what is it? It's January right? Okay. You gonna send the 10th Mountain Division over there? I just, guys, yeah. And I don't, I'm not about appeasement either, and I know what that does. But yeah, look, the Ukrainians are gonna try and defend themselves. People are gonna die. What are we gonna do? Yeah.
What system does Russia have?
Oh, let's talk about it.
Look at that. Right next to
Great segue. Okay, they have a president and a prime minister.
Whichever one.
Now, what is Putin? He's president right now. They have term limits in Russia. Not, you can serve 2 terms, but then you can leave and come back and serve 2 more terms. And then leave and come back and serve 2 more terms. So there's no limit on the total number of terms, but there's a limit on how long at one time, which is 8 years, 2 4-year terms. They use 4 years too. Okay. So what Putin did was president for 8 years, and then he became prime minister. He handpicked the president, his puppet, Medvedev. Okay. And then Medvedev served 4 years. Then Putin came back and ran for president again. Okay, and he's in his second time around for 8 years.
So do they have the same power?
No, the president is the chief executive. Prime minister is the head of state. Confusing? Yes. Okay.
So, but isn't Putin losing power at any point, or no? As a puppet.
When he had Medvedev in there, Medvedev was kind of his buddy, his puppet. He's like, all right, hey, you're going to do this for 4 years, and then I'm going to come back. But you ask me if you got a question. Type of thing. Yeah. Okay. Guys, American politics right now, okay? You guys know who the chief of staff of Joe Biden is. His name is Klein, okay? Now, there's been a lot of talk about this week because, everybody, even the liberal media was like, this was a horrible, no good, crappy, bad week for President Biden, right? Like the mass mandate got shut down, the filibuster survived, the Voting Rights Act failed, the human infrastructure thing's going nowhere. Is a horrible, no good, the thing, right? Right? And so there's a lot of talk about, okay, his first year, not much. I mean, now, to be honest, that first infrastructure bill that passed was a $1.3 trillion bill, guys. That is huge. Okay, I mean, that's something that if you go back to like Reagan years or Clinton years or even Obama years, that is a massive amount of spending that you've never seen the likes of before. Okay, so you can use, that's an accomplishment by Biden for sure. Okay, and it's going to really, hopefully, if it all comes to fruition, we fix roads, bridges, infrastructure, drinking water, water sources, and water treatment plants, and replacing old pipes with lead, the lead pipes, getting rid of those in places like Flint, Michigan. You know what I'm talking about, right? So this is a win. That's a win for Biden, but he hasn't had many others, okay? So a lot of people are like, okay, so should Biden shake things up at the White House? Okay, well, this Chief of Staff, Klein, is his right-hand guy. So it's Klein that is the one that helps set the schedule for the president, when he's going to take questions, when he's not going to take questions, and so forth, okay? So there's been a lot of focus on the Chief of Staff and whether Biden needs to maybe get a new Chief of Staff, and word on the street is no, there's not going to be a shakeup at the White House. Klein's been with Biden for decades, okay? He's like somebody that Biden really trusts. So if you want to know what's coming out of the White House, you got to look at who's behind the president, okay? And so in this case, especially with Biden, look at Klein, okay, and some of his other advisors, okay? Okay, well, all right, good. Understand the differences between the two. Now, in this system right here, if the Parliament votes a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister, they can hold new elections at any time. There are terms in the British system, in the Russian and the German system. There are terms, but they can call for new elections at any time. So Israel, you see this, where, Israel is a lot of times in turmoil because they're attacked by their neighbors a lot. So it's intense. And so you might see these votes of no confidence. In France, you've seen times in a 2-year span where you had as many as 6 different leaders of the executive in a 2-year span. Okay, so it's a lot more chaotic than our system, And the president doesn't have to give press conferences. He doesn't have to answer to the Congress. He just does his job. You know what I mean? And he only has to answer to the people every 4 years. Okay, where this system really holds your leaders accountable. They have to be smart. They have to be witty. They have to be quick on their feet. They got to know the issues. They got to know their own stances on the issues and be able to, talk about it. Because the whole country's watching it. You know what I mean? Where ours is, the president sends his people out to talk on interview shows and all this sort of stuff. It's all choreographed. Okay? So, this system's a lot more fun. We're kind of stuck with our system. Okay? For now. Unless you want to rewrite the Constitution. Yeah. Okay?
Do you think we should ever
No. I kind of like it, but would you trust our Congress to elect our president? Do you want that?
Never mind.
All of them.
Never mind. Yeah. So, and then, Japan uses this, right? Japan has the emperor, it's the head of state. It's Denmark. A lot of these still have their holdover constitutional monarchies. Okay. You still have a monarch, but the Constitution provides a base of power somewhere else in the government. Yeah.
Is there any country in the world that has like a legitimate monarchy where the
I think the best example we can talk about, and I don't know what, it's not divine right, but the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Okay, they have a monarchy, a true monarchy. Okay. Is it legitimate? Well, you have to ask the people there. Okay. A lot of princes in the royal family over there. Okay. Good. All right. Now we're gonna start on the next section. Not gonna get very far today, but we're gonna start. Okay. And we're gonna look at economic theories as forms of government. economic theories as forms of government. And I have 5 of these. How many? 5. The first of which is mercantilism. Yes, you guys all learned this from Mr. Swords. Now, mercantilism is something we saw a lot in earlier centuries. Okay, there's a belief that there's a finite amount of wealth, in the world. Okay, it's not infinite, limited amount of wealth. So in order to get that wealth, you got to go colonize. Okay, you got to go get it. Okay, so good examples of this, like Spain, right? Spain went to Central America, conquered the Incas, and took their what? Everything. Now, over here in north of Central America, you got North America, and the British came over here, and they used us for mercantilism. And what were our 2 big cash crops from the United States? Tobacco and cotton. Okay? And then they would use us to buy the crap they made, like British tea, and make us drink that.
That stuff's kind of
Right. How did that go? And so with mercantilism, finite amount of wealth in the world, so you colonize, okay, and then the mother country takes those raw materials, okay, and the colonies exist to buy goods from the mother country as well. Okay, it's a source of goods and somebody to sell your goods to. Force them to buy your goods. So that's mercantilism. Right? So we don't use that much anymore. Okay. So the second economic theory as a form of government. We got, what time we get out? Okay, we'll do one more. Is socialism. Socialism. Ready? A theory or system of social reform, which contemplates a complete reconstruction of society. A theory or system of social reform which contemplates a complete reconstruction of society, comma, complete reconstruction of society, comma, with a more just and equitable, distribution of property and labor. A complete reconstruction of society with a more just and equitable distribution of property and labor. Socialism. Now, over here, guys, I have this poster. Okay? It's very simplistic, but it helps explain these different ideologies. So socialism. You have 2 cows. Everybody's got 2 cows. The government takes your cows and puts them in a barn with everyone else's cows. Now all the cows are in the barn. Then it gives you as much milk as it thinks you need. So we're pooling our resources together, and then the government's going to distribute the milk. So think of this like Medicare for all or universal health care. Your cows are tax dollars. Everybody puts their tax dollars in the barn. And then the government redistributes the tax dollars paying for your health care. And it will determine what health care you get and how much you get. The redistribution of income for a more just and equitable system. Yes? That's what socialism does. Okay? Do we have socialism in the United States? Yes. Now, Social Security is not socialism. You don't get Social Security unless you pay into Social Security. It's not welfare. Okay? But the roads that we all use are created through socialism, through the government. Our public school systems, which whether you have kids or not, you pay taxes. Okay? And you pay for the education of America's youth in your community. Okay? Those are socialistic ideas. Okay? And it's generally what all governments do. Okay? To an extent. Okay? The more socialistic you become, the more government does for you. Now understand this, guys. When Bernie Sanders talks about democratic socialism, in Europe, where he likes to cite countries like Denmark, okay, in these Norwegian countries, first of all, they're very homogeneous countries. Okay. Second of all, everybody pays taxes. The poor pay taxes. Everybody pays taxes. Okay. In our society, we have a progressive tax system where many of our people, around 47%, pay zero federal income taxes. They don't make enough. Okay. You know, the Social Security you do pay if you're working poor, Medicare you're working poor, the government keeps those. The rest generally comes back to you. Okay. So for our system to become more socialistic, you would need much more revenue to do it. Okay. And this is the debate we're having in society today. Okay. So Margaret Thatcher once said this. She's former Prime Minister of Great Britain. She said, the problem with socialism is that eventually you will run out of other people's money. It's not unlimited. Okay. So those are decisions that you guys make with your vote. You want more government? You know where to vote. You want less government? You know where to vote. You're a moderate, get off the fence.